Okay, I understand. Andrew, I would like to know how you started to design, where you come from, what you did before, and how you came to XLARGE.
Well, I was born in California, and so this is where my roots are and where my family are. And I spent a lot of time in Colorado. Actually, I went to junior high there. Actually, I went to elementary school there, junior high, and high school there. And I came back to California because I was interested in design and really at the time not much going on in Colorado. So I came back here and I went to a school called Parsons, a design school here in Los Angeles. And at the time I knew that I wanted to design, and it was a 4-year program. And the first year was sort of an introduction to everything in the school, and then your second year you claimed your major, and I decided to go into the clothing design department, and it was really a good, rigorous program. It was a real broad program, and they gave you a lot of exposure to a lot of different things. And the main thing that they put emphasis on was design, as opposed to more of the technical aspects, which was also a big portion of it. But throughout the 3-year program, we worked with different designers, a lot of different people, everybody from Todd Oldham to Richard Tyler, and they would come in and do design projects with the students, and it was a pretty elaborate curriculum, and we would do big elaborate illustrations and design projects and do a presentation, and then they would come in and do what they called a sketch selection, pick a design, and we would create that particular outfit or 2 outfits that they picked, and we'd go in there and do all of the hands-on. We would drape, and then we would go and do the flat patterns, and then cut our samples and do initial fittings. The designers would come back, do the fittings with us, and then eventually we would make the garments in the final fabrics, do a final fabric fitting, and so on. And then we had a final fashion show at the end of the year, and once you were a senior, you did 3 design projects in that particular year, and which is a hellish year as I remember. But the big fashion show was sort of the big end finale. And then after that, I came out of school, and actually while I was still in school, I designed a line of baggy jeans while I was still in school, and I made the pattern for myself, and I bought a whole bunch of fabric in a few different colors and made a jean prototype, and sort of went out and hit different stores and peddled my wares, so to speak. And one of the people that I came in and met was Eli with the XLARGE store, and I walked in with a pair of my jeans on one day and said, "Hey, you want to buy some jeans?" And he said sure, and gave me a big order and delivered jeans to him, and they all sold out. Now that was sort of in the time period when the streetwear look was booming, and everybody was wearing baggy jeans, and sort of the hip hop craze was going on. And I think actually I did 2 orders with him. He ordered a second time, which was still grateful for to this day. But after that, I continued to do my own line and a few other pieces for a little while, and sold to a few other small boutiques around LA, still designing in the same vein, sort of baggy stuff, and did some baggier tops, and people seemed to really like it. And then on down the line, I sort of had lost contact with XLARGE for a while, and then I got a call from Eli, as I said, one of the owners, and he wanted me to just oversee one of their design projects, which was this big, long vinyl trench coat that was sort of like in the vein of like Run DMC, you know, a big black trench, real simple, plain, sort of intimidating looking big black gangster coat. And so I made the coat for him, and it was a fairly successful piece, I guess. And shortly after that, he offered me a design position there at the company. And so ever since then, I've been designing for XLARGE alongside with Eli. He and I, you know, jointly source all of the fabrics, and you know, we both come up with the concepts and everything. And then I basically, you know, do all of the hands-on work. I do all the patterns and all of the draping and put together, you know, our presentation boards and put together the whole line. And you know, he and I work pretty closely together, and you know, I work pretty closely with the other people in the company because we do a lot of graphics, a lot of T-shirt graphics, as you know, and that's a different department, but it's incorporated in the line. So that's how it all started, really.
It's the name says it. It's what people wear on the street. Could you maybe tell us how this style developed over the years, starting maybe in the late 70s? What was important? What was influential?
Well, it's kind of a tough question. I mean, I think that so much attributed to the street style thing. For me personally, when I first came to LA, I think that one of the things that definitely gave me so much influence is all the different nationalities that are in the U.S., especially in California. There's such large concentrations of different minorities in California, and a lot of people had a lot of different styles. And I think that I just sort of tried to pay attention to how people did dress on the street. And I think for so long well, like especially like in the Latino community, there was a lot of people on the street that, you know, I saw that were wearing, you know, a lot of bigger baggy chinos and things, and you know, I think the so-called cholo look was really big with, like, I think the company Ben Davis, that was a big influence in the street style, and you know, with like twill shirts and small zippers in the front, and chinos that people just bought too big and gathered them tight at the waist, and, you know, slitting your pants up the side and letting them drag on the ground. And, you know, I think I just paid attention to the way people wore their clothes on the street, and I think that also, you know, the music industry starting in I guess late 70s, 80s was really influential. I think that, like, Run DMC was one of the big influences on street style, and I think that also the band Sonic Youth, who we're involved with the company, has set a lot of trends. I don't think that they're necessarily have a real baggy look associated with them, but I think that they've always just sort of worn clothes that they felt comfortable in, that they were happy in. I think that they used to wear, you know, lots of Levi's and tight skinny T-shirts and things like that, and I think that that's sort of the direction that streetwear is evolving into now. I think it's, you know, I think that there's a lot of different influences now, like as Eric said, you know, Brooks Brothers and Agnes B and people like that are really having a lot of influence now. But for myself, you know, I always just kind of tried to stay true to what I like and what I was comfortable in, and so that was.
Maybe you could describe again when you started looking consciously on the people, at the people on the street, ethnic minorities, for example. You just told me when was this, and what did the people look like at that time, and how has it changed?
Well, I don't know. You know, I think that there's also really different looks coastally too. Like when I was in New York a long time ago, I think that colors tend to be a little bit darker, and it seems like people were wearing, you know, sort of baggier street clothes baggier chinos and big tees in New York for a while, and I think when it started, there weren't such crazy logo trends, and people were wearing just like button-down tees or button-down shirts that were big, and pants that didn't. I think that there weren't any distinct labels that people were really true to, except for like Ben Davis and people like that. But now I think that the market is really logo driven, and people are slaves to logos now almost. And like some of the earlier streetwear companies, I think that people love to advertise their logos, and also I think that one of the huge things that influenced streetwear were clubs. People were in clubs and people created their own different t-shirt graphics, and I think that a lot of companies originated from that, logos that stuck and things that people like to create on tees and screen printing, and I think that there's been really a lot of offshoots from that. And now I think that definitely with certain crowds, there's people are still wearing a lot of baggy things, but I think that things are going a little bit slimmer right now, and people are wearing slightly more body conscious fitting clothes, but I think that people now are really looking back to the 60s and 70s when things were much slimmer and more fitted. I think that tighter tees were really big. That's sort of on its way out, but I still think that there's a lot of variations of that. Tight t-shirts and smaller fitting shirts, and people are wearing Western wear, and I think that people wearing Levi's 501s is always going to be a popular thing. But I think that to each his own. I think that individuals are gonna wear what they want.
Could you tell me something about the influence of workwear?
Well, yeah. I think that the sort of standard uniform is a really appealing look, sort of the crisp, clean uniform look. It's I don't really know how to explain it. It's I think that I'm sort of lost for words on that.
No problem. Maybe you can just tell me who was wearing workwear when workwear came into fashion, and what out of workwear was transported into fashion.
Right. Well, I think that basically the American workforce. I think that there's so many people who went to work every day and wore workwear, and I think that a lot of people who were in the labor force came home and continued to wear their workwear, and sort of dressed it up here and there with different accessories, with belts and caps and things like that. And I think that eventually it just was noticed by younger kids. And there's a lot of companies that sort of design around that workwear. Like, as I said before, Ben Davis was a company that catered to farmers and made utilitarian clothing that was heavy and sturdy and sewn well and riveted, and that just really caught on. And so I think that there's been a lot of other companies that have really sort of followed that trend, and XLARGE followed that trend. They sold Ben Davis at their store, and they did a lot of shirts that were very similar with the short zips out of heavy twills and poplins and cottons, and continued to do that, like the workwear pant with the squared pocket lines and beeper pockets, and I think that still is influential here and there, and I still continue to see that in a lot of things. Even with new big giant companies like Diesel, things like that, they tend to incorporate some sort of utilitarian elements in their clothes.
Can you tell me something about the aspect of functionality?
Of functionality? Well, I think as I said, I think that the construction of those clothes was an important detail. Those clothes were built to last. You could buy things and hang on to them forever, and I think that it's also it's sort of standard garb for different things. It applies to work. You could wear it out. Whatever.
Tell me something about the influences of the different sports, like surfing and graffiti writing, skating.
Yeah.
How this has influenced the clothes and the street style.
Well, I think especially for skating, it was well, back to your question on functional purpose of the clothing. I think that the clothing served a purpose for being baggy for skaters because they need to move around and jump and ollie and to have baggy clothing, you're able to have freedom, and you weren't restricted in what you wore. And I think that the surf industry has been around for so long, and I think the surf industry's always been an influence in streetwear, and I think that it always will be. It's a diehard sport that certainly has its place in history, and I think that all sports incorporate, or people like to emulate athletes a lot, especially basketball players. Big shorts, past your knees, and like a lot of the big parkas with sports logos on them, and caps with sports logos are obviously extremely popular and will always have an influence on kids. And I think kids obviously look up to sports figures, and I think for a lot of people it's been sort of their ticket out of poverty, if you will. A lot of kids have seen people who've done well in sports and make tons of money, and like to at least emulate the look, and ultimately be a sports figure if you could, play professionally on a team. I know I would have liked to, but I'm happy what I do anyway. I drink too much anyway. I'm a little too fat to be a basketball player anyway. A little too short little white boy.
So the other big major influence that was mentioned, or that we mentioned, is music. What are the sounds that go with street styles? How have they changed over the years also?
Well, when I was a younger kid, I was sort of into the punk movement and listened to a lot of different punk bands, but I also listened to some different pop, like David Bowie and Sonic Youth was a band that was influential, and I can't really think of bands off my head, but I think that music is getting a lot harder now, and or has over the last few years, and the rap movement was huge. There's so many bands that came from that coastally and all over the world, and I think that and also hip hop now is huge, and hip hop I think was associated with big baggy stuff, and I think hip hop now is sort of changing a little bit, and I don't exactly know where it's going, but I mean now I find myself listening to
that goes with it. What has been important?
Well,
Sure.
well, I think definitely initially, rap had a huge influence on the way that XLARGE was designing their clothes, and again, baggy pants and baggy tops was definitely influential. And I think that even before I was with XLARGE, I think that those guys sort of started to change their style. I mean, they're definitely involved in the music industry, but I don't think that they like to be cornered and thought of as totally influenced by rap or hip hop. I think that they and we, myself, I think have really broad music interests, and I think that we try and incorporate a lot of stuff as like, even the old 60s and 70s and 50s, actors and music industry people influence us a lot. And I definitely find us making reference to 60s clothes quite a bit. But and in the present, I think that's really one of our biggest influences. I think we make lots of little accessories, like everything from money clips and this is our little extra large money clip. I don't have any money in it, but this is our belt buckle that we do, sort of like standard military issue, sort of 50s workwear style. But I think that our look now, we're sort of I'd say a little bit more in the vein of sort of the alternative music, I think, and not going quite as baggy and as involved in the hip hop look.
Can you describe, maybe you just said 50s and 60s and references to certain musicians? Can you tell us some names and the styles that go with it?
Well, I think I think that Frank Sinatra was one of the people who, he was such a big heavy hitter high roller that he was such an interesting figure, and wore some really great clothes in his movies and on stage, and even like Sammy Davis Jr. He was a suave motherfucker. So we like to sort of make references to the things that he used to do, and I don't know, maybe even people like Iggy Pop, David Bowie, people like that. Those are people who my design orientation sort of refers back to. But I just can't really think. Just the old, a lot of the old Hollywood high rollers we, tend to make reference to. And, it's sort of changing as time goes on. I think that there's current music industry figures who we look to, like Kim Gordon, who's she really is a big trendsetter, I think, and she's done some really, really interesting designs with the X-Girl line, and I know she wouldn't want to be she wouldn't appreciate it if we associated her with 60s or 70s design. I think it definitely has some reference to 60s and 70s, but I think that she's really created a look that is really one of a kind and unique, and something that really encompasses is a real streetwear look. It's inexpensive clothing. It's simple silhouettes, simple styles that people wear and like and look great in.
Okay. Also dazu kann ich ja jetzt noch, stopp mal einen Moment.
Okay, Horst? Horst?
Ja,
So?
ja.
Ja?
Er soll noch mal ein bisschen weiter zurück, einen Tick zurück noch.
Ja?
Ja, okay.
That are important styles.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I really make reference to is 60s style for me personally, and that I try and bring to the extra large line. There's a lot of details, things like higher armholes and tighter sleeves and smaller fitting bodies, and I think at that point in time collars were smaller and silhouettes were boxy, especially for men, but I like leaner pants, a slimmer cut pant, a straight leg, or a slightly pegged pant. But that's just sort of one element, and I also, we make a few references to some 70s details. but we don't ever really exaggerate things like big spread collars or I guess 70s isn't really a big reference, but I think that 80s when hip hop and rap were really big, we still definitely make reference to that. Bigger, baggier jeans, and so some of our pants are still fuller cut, but we also make pants that like our jeans right now are a slimmer cut, and if you want to wear it baggier, you buy it a little bigger. And we make like some real standard sort of chino pants with cuffs on the bottom, and we also make a standard chino that's plain legged and that's a very traditional sort of 60s cut. And I think that just my personal design orientation right now is not too baggy. It's sort of a leaner cut, and maybe I wear my jeans sort of. I don't wear them tight, but I wear them a little slimmer, and I don't wear oversized T-shirts. So I don't know, but that's me personally, and I think it's having some influence on the street right now, and in a lot of our advertising right now, we that's how we portray a lot of our things. We show things that are slimmer and this and that. We also use a handicap spokesmodel. You can't tell what the clothes look like on. So
I would like to come back to feminine and masculine street style. How this developed, like at first was it one, or how did it look like, and then X-Girl came, and then maybe we can talk about Kim Gordon again.
Yeah, I think that it, at the point when hip hop and the baggier things came onto the scene, it was really similar. I think that girls were wearing baggier jeans and baggier pants and bigger T-shirts and oversized parkas, and so were the guys. I think that some of the accessories were different, like jewelry was different and whatnot. But with X-Girl, I think that X-Girl definitely has a real streety feel, and it's a lot of everyday clothes that people like, and they're inexpensive, and you can throw them on, and I think that the silhouettes that we do now are more fitted and conscious to one's body. We're doing a lot of dresses, and we do them in some polyesters and polycottons, and we do sleeveless cuts and 3/4 sleeves, and they're darted, and the silhouette is flattering to a woman's body. And a lot of the pants that we do are they're sort of a lower hip hugger, sort of sexy looking pant with a straight leg, and worn quite tight, like a tight 501 sort of. And some of the outerwear pieces that we do are not big and baggy and oversized. They're real small, and I think that a lot of the design reference that was used on the X-Girl line was, things like Daytona Beach, Florida in the 60s and 70s. And in a way, I think it's sort of almost an element of drinking Budweiser in your trailer park. Sort of, that's a strange reference, but yeah, I think it's a everyday streety look that people can afford and will continue to buy. And I think that one of the nice things about the line as it evolves is we're really trying to pay a lot of attention to inside detail in the clothes. I think that there's a little bit more handwork that goes into them now, and just a lot more effort is put into the detail in the clothes, and I think that'll continue to get better and better.
So you have two great names out of the music business that go with you to labels, Kim Gordon and Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
Could you just describe what part they have in the specific labels?
Well, sure, yeah. Well, I think that Mike D, Mike D is really true to street style, and and the Beastie Boys themselves, they're from the East Coast, and I think that they sort of brought an East Coasty feel to the West Coast a little bit, and the East Coast in that specific vein, I think, was even a little bit ahead of its time, and brought sort of like a baggier chino and T-shirts with interesting graphics on it, and sort of a little bit of a white trashy feel, sort of, I think, and they're involved with everybody in the music industry and take their influences from people, and so I think that in that sense, that's the influence that Mike D has had. He's a partner in the company and gives a lot of influence. And Kim Gordon is somebody who's been established in the music industry for such a long time and has incorporated a real look of her own throughout many years. And Thurston Moore, also her husband, and just the whole look of Sonic Youth has been real true to the streets, and I think they've all been really true to themselves and wore things that they want. Make reference to companies like or buy things from companies like Brooks Brothers and wear everyday street clothes, and so.
Das Wichtige ist, muss das nochmal wiederholen.
XLARGE, the company, and the name, the philosophy. Maybe you can also tell me something about the name XLARGE.
Okay. Yeah.
And then about the philosophy behind the label.
Right. Well, I incorporate XLARGE as being larger than life. Live your life large. Don't hold back. Do what you want to do. Don't be shy. Wear what you want to wear. Do what you want to do. Pursue the things that you want to do. And I think that's what the guys did who own the company and design the line. They do whatever the hell they want. They're interesting, educated people, and don't hold back, and have a great company and design exactly what they want to do, and are true to themselves. And I think that's so important. That's so admirable in this rat race of fashion industry. I mean, the typical fashion industry is a shithole. It's a shithole, for the most part. There's so many little companies that follow trends and don't have any inspiration and do what they know is going to sell. Fuck that. Design what's true to you. Design what you love. Live the way you want to live. Don't use too much discretion. Whatever. Fuck all you people out there. Whatever. I don't know. Sorry.
Quite good.
I
So.
would like to come back also to XLARGE, the label, because you just told me that earlier on, a few years ago, kids were not so much looking for the label. They were wearing their own clothes, vintage clothes, whatever. But you are also a company who's very big with the labeling. On all your clothes you have like XLARGE everywhere,
right.
Big or small.
Right.
Why?
Well, I think that people have sort of caught on to the philosophy of the company, and I think that Mike D has a huge influence on it, and people are really crazy about the Beastie Boys and like what they do, and realize that Mike D and Kim Gordon are associated with both the lines, and I think that has a big part in it. But Eli and Eric, who do the graphics in the company, I think that they, for one thing, do such strong graphics and use, a lot of interesting sort of 70s and 60s and 50s and 80s and 90s icons that are really interesting, and they do successful graphics, and the company is and I think that people buy into the philosophy of the company and want to advertise the logo. I think it's larger than life. Wear it on your shirt. Why not?
We would also like to do, Sollen wir uns dafür nochmal wechseln?
Okay.
Jeans are just an everyday pair of pants, and it's something that you can get up in the morning and throw on. Me personally, I like to wear my 501s because I like the way my ass looks in them. No, I'm sorry, that was really bad. But it's an everyday piece of clothing. Throw them in the washer, they last forever, they fade, they look great.
T-shirts.
T-shirts. I always wear my extra large T-shirt, of course. But T-shirts are an everyday staple. Put what you want on your T-shirt. Different graphics. Put what you're thinking. Larger than life in this case.
And sneakers.
Sneakers. I don't know. I'm true to my Pumas, that's for sure. True to my Pumas. I've got my Nikes, which I run in, and that's about it.
What about hairstyles?
Hairstyles? Oh, well. I don't know. I kind of like what I got going right here now, though, let me tell you. I like it a little shorter sometimes, though. Kind of like the poodle hair.
No.
Okay, thanks.
Is that it?
That's it.
That was very quick. Great.